Last week I gave you guys 3 hints as to what I'd be reviewing today. I said that it was going to be an adaptation in the genre of romance, and that cast included Anna Kendrick. And the film, as you can see, is Twilight. Now, the Anna Kendrick thing was a little bit of a dirty trick because she's in the movie, but only by barely. She's a side character, but that being said, I wasn't very hyped to turn this series on again, but for a while. This movie really was a big thing for both good and bad reasons. So with that being said, let's get cracking. Twilight centers around the life of teenage Bella Swan, played by Kristen Stewart, who moves to the small town of Forks, Washington, where she runs into the Cullens, a family of what she will soon learn are just a bunch of pale yet sparkling vampires. One of which is Edward Cullen, played by Robert Pattinson, who she falls desperately in love with way too fast for her own good. Now, before I go on with my review of Twilight, I wanted to first give you guys 3 hints as to what I'll be reviewing next time for the Cinematic Shuffle. Next week's review is an animal-centric film, also an adaptation, and the genre is family comedy. Think about that, and if you get it right, I will pin your comment. 2008 was an interesting year, not only filled with a bunch of teenage vampire stories, but also it was the height of adapting young adult novels to films in general. But out of an already saturated medium of the time, one film has remained in most people's minds as the worst of the worst of the worst, and something that should probably be forgotten about all around, and yet, the Twilight series is one that I've actually seen 4 or 5 times at this point, not because I think that these movies are good, God no, but because they're so easy to make fun of. So in essence, the entire Twilight saga is so bad that it's good. But the first one is absolutely guilty of being the cringiest of the bunch, but you can't exactly skip it because it's vital for introducing you to all the characters, their motivations, their drive, etc. Without this movie, the rest of the series would not only be bad, but ultra confusing. That being said, I don't want to crap on the entire movie right off the bat. I do want to mention the aspects of the film that I do like. A part of the series weirdly gets better over time, and it's all based off the things that you don't really think about, like casting. I mean, you watch this movie and you know darn well that Kristen Stewart and Robert Pattinson are horrible with their performances. They can't act. Their reactions just come off wrong, like the moment that they meet and he smells her for the first time. And he's supposed to be overwhelmed with an intoxicating, unstoppable fragrance, and yet he just kind of looks like he wants to throw up. And even when Kristen's supposed to be performing her scenes, a lot of people like to say that she doesn't show emotion. They're dead wrong. She shows a lot of emotion, but those emotions are trash. The positive that comes with time, though, is that I can't really imagine anybody else in these roles anymore. In 2008, I would have probably said it was the worst casting known to man. But now, they're just so iconic in their roles, I can't really help but see them in these characters. Like it's bad, yeah, but they also help be so bad that it's almost good too. I also actually like a couple of characters in these movies and their respective actors. One being her dad, Charlie, played by Billy Burke. He's the most down-to-earth, realistic, most importantly, consistent character in the entire saga, and you can't help but feel for him because he has absolutely no idea what's going on in the town around him, even though he is the police chief. The other actor that I legitimately like in all these films is Taylor Lautner's Jacob. I was always on Team Jacob, but not because he's hot, but because he's also down to earth. He's believable, he's alive, he doesn't look sickly like Edward, and most importantly, he actually has frickin' chemistry with Bella. I'm sorry, but it's true, haters. Even though there's not a ton of focus on his character yet, you still feel a twinge of that chemistry that they do have. Everything, and I mean everything with Edward, feels super forced because they need to be lovers, because they're the main characters or whatever. It doesn't feel natural, organic whatsoever though. Visually, the film is mostly a disaster. Now look, I don't mind some of the cinematography. The visual of Forks is pretty memorable and it's dealt with well overall. But look, sparkling vampires is simply the stupidest thing I've ever seen in my entire life. Even though, yeah, it's original, but that doesn't always mean it's good. The way that they glide while they run as fast as they do looks stupid. How she rides Edward as he jumps from tree to tree like a spider monkey is cringeworthy. How she lays down in the grass with Edward and they just kind of stare at each other for God knows how long is god-awful. The dialogue is consistently gag-worthy, and at one point all vampires hiss at each other like they're kitty cats. They hiss, guys! And the film as a whole is way too moody for its own good. God, is it moody. And predictable. Not only predictable for itself, but also predictable for how the rest of the series will play out. Most of the way this film approaches the concepts that the novel laid out are just bad and laughable overall. I never read the books, but from what I understand, they're better, but that wouldn't take much to be true. People don't like this series because it's cringeworthy, corny, sappy, moody, predictable, and has a lot of bad performances all around. But I also don't like it because it simply presents a love interest that is devoid of any real believable chemistry. It also doesn't have a crazy engaging storyline that many people can get all that invested in. A small town with animal attacks, which are actually vampire attacks, isn't something that feels original. In fact, it's highly stereotypical for vampires. There's not a ton surrounding this film that warrants people come back for the sequels, other than the fact that it sucks. As weird as it sounds, and it does sound weird, I think the strongest thing about this film is that it does indeed suck, and that audiences want to see how bad it can get from here. And guys, we're just getting started. I might include the rest of the Twilight series as part of my cinematic shuffle, or I might review the rest of the series sooner because my wife usually watches this series with me. She also hates it, but she also finds it easy to make fun of. And you can't just watch one. So keep an eye out because I might be reviewing the other sequels sooner than later. But let's take a look at my final score for Twilight, which I gave it a D- letter grade, final overall score of 40%, 40 out of 100 possible stars, which is the lowest score that I can give a movie before it's considered a failing letter grade of F. Obviously 40% is pretty low for a D- letter score, but I tend to be a little bit more lenient when it comes down to reviewing movies in general. I've seen the movie a few times, so I do consider it rewatchable, and if it's even a little bit rewatchable, I don't really feel right giving an F either. But what do you guys think about Twilight? Please let me know in the comment section down below. And as always, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell to be notified when I come up with my next review for the Cinematic Shuffle. And until then, peace out.